Hey, what is up guys, Joseph here for another top 10 video. This one's going to be doing my top 10 Marvel movies. Now, before I get into it, some honorable mentions I have. It's Thor, first one, not the second one. I hated the second one. Anyways, Thor movie I wasn't really looking forward to, but I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So, they got that for it. X-Men First Class, again, at that point I had very much lost interest in the X-Men movies, because before that it was X-Men First Class followed the X-Men Last Stand and Origins. I believe those were the first two to come out before First Class. Could be wrong, but I think that those were the two that preceded. Yep. Anyways, that Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now, this movie, I honestly, it was kind of a disappointment. It was, but I still had a great time in the theater, so it's still an okay movie, but it wasn't as great as I thought it would. Ultron wasn't a good villain like I thought he was going to be in the trailers, like a whole bunch of other people. But yeah, X-Men, the first one that came out in 2000, I believe. It's really the one that started this whole superhero craze we're in now, 15 years later, well, 16 years now. But yeah, not really my favorite X-Men, but I'll get more into that later. And the last honorable mention is Blade 2, the only R-rated superhero movie that I've enjoyed so far. Hoping Deadpool will top Blade 2, but cross fingers. But yeah, Vampire Hunter, really not into vampires, but Blade I love. Wish he'll be in the MCU, but that ain't gonna happen. Be shocked if it does. Anyways, those are honorable mentions. Now on to the list. My number 10 is a movie that's gonna create some hate. I can already see it. Ant-Man. Now, a lot of people didn't like it. I did. I actually thought it was better than Avengers: Age of Ultron. There was not one moment in that movie that I won't get into spoilers for any of these, so you don't have to worry about. But I wasn't at all bored during this movie. It was joke after joke after joke, funny. Probably, I'd say it's one of. I'm not gonna say it's the most because I haven't really thought about that, but it's one of the most funniest Marvel movies that I've seen. But other than that, the only bad thing about the movie is the villain. Like a whole lot of these Marvel movies, the villains aren't that great. And while I'm thinking about villains, sorry I didn't do this earlier. This reason why I'm not saying top 10 superhero movies is because if I do that, most of them will be dominated by Marvel movies. So, for all you DC fans out there, your time will come. Maybe with this new DCU that is gonna start soon. Maybe more better movies, because with DC, I can only think of 3, 4, 5, 6 movies. Only 6 movies that I've enjoyed. Only 6. The first 2 Superman, Superman 1 and 2, Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Begins, and Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is one of the most overrated. I'm sorry. Heath Ledger is the only good thing about Dark Knight. DC fanboys come at me. I don't care. Heath Ledger was the only good thing about the Dark Knight. Anyways, that's my DC rant. But yeah, Ant-Man is number 10. My number 9 is... Sorry, I went off track a little bit. Number 9 is Spider-Man. The 2003... 2001? No, I think it was 2001. Anyways, the Tobey Maguire first one with the Green Goblin. I'll get more into that later. Spider-Man was, I believe, it was my first experience with the whole superhero movie genre. Could be wrong, but I want to say it's the first one. I remember seeing this one and another one I'll get into later in the theaters when I was, I don't know, how old was I? Like 5, 6. Anyways, Spider-Man is probably my favorite Marvel character. So it was because of Spider-Man that I was even introduced to him. Because before that, I didn't really know anything about superheroes, let alone Spider-Man. But great villain, and Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. Terrifying as a kid. Terrifying. That scene with when he gets his powers. I don't know how to describe it more than that. I want to say what's that. I want to say it's that scene. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'm probably going to go see it again soon. But I want to say it's that scene. There was like a jump scare with Norman, the Green Goblin, opening up his eyes, and it was all white. Now, like I am now, like an adult, basically, it's not scary. But back then, when I was 5, 6, whatever age I was, don't really remember, terrified me. Now, anyways, I keep trailing off. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, Spider-Man is my number 9. Number 8 is a movie that's probably going to be on a little higher on everyone else's list. I personally didn't like it as much as other people did. X-Men: Days of Future Past. Now, I'll admit, I'll get more on that later. X-Men: Days of Future Past, it really saved the X-Men for me. Because First Class, as I mentioned in the honorable mentions, it was fine. Wasn't great, but it was better than Origins and Last Stand. Days of Future Past I actually enjoyed a whole lot more than First Class, but it still wasn't the best. I'll get more into that later. But why is it? I'm not even gonna go there. X-Men: Days of Future Past is my number 8. Number 7 is probably the movie that I've had the most fun with in the theater, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, this one's another one that might be a little higher on other people's lists. I get it, but I I love Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's not one of the best movies ever made. Like, movie wise, like holding it to a standard, I guess it's not a great movie. It's a fun movie, but it's not a great movie. But Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the best soundtracks. I don't even remember half the songs that are on. It's mostly dominated by 80s. And if I don't know if I've ever said this, but the 80s was my favorite music. Hands down, the 80s had my favorite music. Hands down. And the soundtrack, Bradley Cooper. If I had not known that Bradley Cooper voiced Rocket, I would not have guessed that was him. He sounds nothing like the normal Bradley Cooper. Nothing like him. Vin Diesel. I'm sorry, I'm just remembering that on his trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was funny. But Vin Diesel was like the Iron Giant. He's perfect. Yeah, if you guys have never seen the Iron Giant, by the way, check it out. It's a really good and underrated movie. Dave Bautista. Now, I am a WWE fan. Dave Bautista was never a favorite of mine, acting wise and wrestling wise. He actually wasn't that bad in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's saying a lot, because I'm honestly like not. I couldn't care less about Dave Bautista at all, but he actually did a better job than I thought he was going to do. Zoe Saldana as Gamora, great. Chris Pratt, hilarious as Star-Lord. Again, the only downfall of this movie is the villain. Completely underused. But whatever. Guardians of the Galaxy number 7, and my number 6 is my favorite X-Men movie, X2, X-Men United. Not only did it introduce one of my favorite X-Men mutants, Nightcrawler, from the first X-Men, I, for one, because I didn't know any backstory on any of the characters, I was curious of what everybody's background was. And in X2, one of the main ones that I was curious about was answered. Yeah. Wolverine. There was that on the manor scene, like the manor attack. Hands down was, I'll go as far as to say, the best scene in all the X-Men combined. Now, I'll go on record and say that. That manor scene is the best scene in all the X-Men movies combined. Maybe with Apocalypse that'll change. Don't know. But that manor scene alone made this movie number 6. That, if I can find it on YouTube, I'll put the link in the description below. Y'all check it out if you haven't seen it. Okay, and now this one, I thought Ant-Man was going to do some hate. My number 5 is the only animated movie on this list. Most people don't even know it's a Marvel movie. My number 5 is Big Hero 6. Now, I watched this for the first time yesterday. Um, and I loved it. Now, I honestly didn't think it was going to be that great because I actually liked the How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2. And I want to say it beat How to Train Your Dragon 2 at the Oscars. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But I want to say it did. And that shocked me. Because I really loved the 1 and 2 How to Train Your Dragon. But, no, I'll look it up. Okay, it did. Just got finished looking it up. It did win Best Animated Feature Film or whatever it's called in the Oscars. Anyways, so that really shocked me because I loved How to Train Your Dragon. But after watching it, I'm actually more of a fan of Big Hero 6 than I am How to Train Your Dragon. Mm, I'll go on record and saying that. Big Hero 6 is better than How to Train Your Dragon 2, so I'll look past that shock. But Big Hero 6, I'm not one of the best, funniest characters in Baymax. Who, if y'all haven't seen the movies, the android robot, not really robot, but like the inflatable. Is he a robot? He's not a metal robot like the typical robots are. He's like a inflatable. Anyways, Baymax is that white, fluffy thing. I'll put a picture right there if I figured it out. But yeah, Big Hero 6 is my number 5. Number 4 is Iron Man. Iron Man is another movie that's a lot higher on other people's list. It's number 4 for me. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but Iron Man is still a great movie. Still enjoyed it as much as all these others. Well, except for a few. Yeah, Iron Man. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, Iron Man started the entire MCU. If that movie was not a success, the entire MCU would not even be existing right now. And I'll say that Iron Man is. Well, that's a list. That's a list for another day. Top 10 Marvel characters. List for another day. Keep an eye out for that. Iron Man, probably the best villain outside of Loki. Probably the best villain that I can think of. Well, okay, that's a list for another day. Top 10 Marvel villains. So keep an eye out for that. God, I'm creating top 10 on the spot. Anyways, the only downside to this movie was, me personally, I'm not a big Gwyneth Paltrow fan. I'm just not. I understand why some people like her, some people hate her, whatever. I don't hate her, but I'm not a fan of her. But she she was okay. She didn't really have that much time. Terrence Howard, I believe that's his name, Rhodey in the first one. He was only in the first one. Great actor in some movies. He was phoning it in, and you could tell he didn't want to be there. You could tell. Go back and watch it. You can tell he did not want to be there. That's another bad thing about it. But yeah, thanks to Iron Man, we got Marvel movies. We got so yeah, Iron Man's number 4. Number 3 is a movie that, unlike many others, I actually like the sequel better than the first one. Number 3 is Spider-Man 2. Great movie. Great villain. And when I say great villains in like the Iron Man and Guardians and Ant-Man, those 3 are in the MCU. The others that I've said so far aren't, except for some of the honorable mentions. But the MCU don't really have that many great villains, except for Loki and maybe Thanos and some more I'll get into later. But Spider-Man 2 is not in the MCU. So, great villain, Doc Ock, what's the actors? Alfred Molina. Great. Played perfectly by Alfred Molina. I've said this before, but I've never said it publicly like on YouTube. And I stand by this. Quote me on this. Andrew Garfield, who played Spider-Man and Peter Parker and the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, is a better Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire, who played him in Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. I'll put the pictures right up there. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire is a better Peter Parker. Because Spider-Man is the funny, witty, quick, smart alecky kind of guy. Quips the jokes all the time. Peter Parker, nerdy, shy, timid, that kind of thing. So maybe the new guy who's playing him in the MCU and Captain America Civil War combines them two. Maybe we'll see I forget his name. Tom Holland is the new Spider-Man for the 3rd time. But we'll see what he's like. Anyways, Spider-Man 2 is my number 3. Now, with 1 and 2, I honestly haven't seen one of them, except for very recently. And I struggled which one I wanted to put where, but I knew these two were going to be the top of the food chain. And I've come to the conclusion that my number 2 is The Avengers. Yeah, The Avengers is my number 2. One of my favorite movies of all time is my number 2. The movie that really, I believe it was the first big crossover between like 4 franchises: the Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk. Yeah, 4 franchises. One of the biggest crossovers ever, done perfectly. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. That entire, I'd say 35 to 40 minute battle sequence in New York. Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but it flies by. Great, entertaining from start to finish of that entire sequence. But yeah, Avengers is my number 2. Number 1 is the movie that I haven't seen until very recently, and I actually thought it was better than Avengers. Now, my number 1 favorite Marvel movie is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Might be in the minority, but I actually like Captain America: The Winter Soldier better than all of these movies. Might be in the minority. Won't be the first time. Anyways, like Spider-Man 2, like the Avengers, like Iron Man, the first one. Great villain in the Winter Soldier. Not gonna say anything about him. The first, because I honestly didn't really care about Captain America until, well, I can't really say that, but until Avengers 2. Like, I liked him in the first Avengers, but I wasn't like a big fan of him. Like, I actually liked him more in Avengers 2 than I did in the first one. But if I would have seen this movie at the time of its release, probably would have started liking him here. And it's probably because of this movie that I liked him better in the Age of Ultron. Maybe. But like, people say that it's more of like a spyish thriller. I guess that's what people are calling it, I think. I'm sorry, I just can't see it as a spy movie. Like, I can see why people are saying that, but I see all of these as a superhero movie. I don't like, superhero movies are a genre of them all, of its own. Whether it's Marvel or DC, superhero movies are a genre of its own. That's just my opinion, but whatever. But yeah, that's my list. What are yours? Comment down below. Let me know. Do you think Avengers should be number 1? But yeah, that's my personal list. Everybody's got their own opinion. But yeah, let me know yours in the comments. Have any top 10 suggestions? Comment down below. Let me know. Send me a private message. Let me know. But that's it for this one. Like me on Facebook at JMash97. Follow me on Twitter at JMash97. As always, those links will be in the description below. And as always, mash out.